This broadcast was deleted. Ay, shucks. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. And oh, we're live. Okay. Sorry about that. We've actually seen like a notification that we can't go on live. So anyway, good afternoon, everyone. And for those who are watching from different time zones, good morning or good evening. And my name is Marilyn. I'm the founder and CEO of Customized Training Solutions Private Limited, and we are passionate about helping leaders and organizations who are continuous learners and action takers to transform and thrive in all aspects by co-creating customized programs with our world-class resources. And we have served over 3,000 leaders from 30 countries in different industries, including Petronas, Sony, Mobile, ProLife UK, Ayala Group, Chevron, Tencent, Jollibee Foods Corporation, Shell, to name a few. And expert says that uh, the pandemic will last for the next 3 to 5 years. And this is why we are organizing several interventions, including this particular interview. Um, Let me just do something. Okay, and this is why we are organizing several interventions like this, including this interview. And this is because we would like to help more leaders who actually are struggling to know how they can stay relevant and adapt to the new normal, and those who actually find it stressful to lead and ensure performance of a remote team, and for those who are afraid that they can't keep the team um, and business as well during this difficult situation. So, for today, it's my great pleasure to introduce our leader. It's very interesting because I had a previous conversation with her on what her specialization is and what she does. Aisha is known to be as the potion master and aura transformer with over 20 years of experience in holistic healing. After spending 10 years in financial planning, she decided to focus on holistic health by combining her knowledge on essential oils with numerology, kinesio- kinesiology, therapy, and meridian work. Well known for her work in the Raindrop Therapy, Aisha has empowered individuals of all walks of life to take charge of their self care practice in their daily lives. Her commitment, nurturing, lovable, and intuitive nature has helped hundreds of clients to realign themselves in all aspects of their lives. And without so much further ado, I'd like to bring in Aisha. Hi, Aisha. How are you?
Hi, Marilyn. Hi. I'm sorry today you can't see my face.
It was unfortunate that we can see your beautiful face today, but anyway, since we're already live, so we'll just get through this anyway. It's your message that will be important for us. And before we start, I just wanted to say hi to Supadi Sumarto. He's saying hello, good afternoon, from Batam, Indonesia. Oh, lovely place. I've been there before. So anyway, Aisha, thank you so much for taking time to have this, live interview today. It was like, I was hoping we can see your face because, that it would really add in terms of the engagement and, but, this is how live goes, right? So I
Yeah.
really yeah, so maybe we just jump in so that we can learn so much from you, your experience, and especially on the leadership and transformation side. And as we all know as well, like since you focus on the well-being healing side, so it's really interesting. It will be an interesting conversation, I would say, because a lot of people had that realization in terms of having more of a holistic health in the past few years due to COVID-19. So let's just get started.
Okay, let's get started.
So yeah, do share with us, like, what's your leadership experience, influencers perhaps, and if you have a favorite leadership style that you'd like to share with us, feel free to do so.
Okay. My if I would say who is my favorite leadership style is I don't really have a specific icon that's really known, but um, I really love the kind of leadership that actually practices more to sense and sensibility.
Mm-hmm.
A leader who can feel and understand their subordinates, and understand the internal well-being of them, knowing where they're coming and knowing where their stressful ground are, and when they know stress is really stress, but they do not focus on the stress. So it's really allowing the person to relax first, and then after that come up and think of brainstorming the solutions.
Mm-hmm.
I have that kind of like leadership vision, leader vision in, but I've not seen anyone that has such a charisma that
Mm-hmm.
can carry in that perspective that I have visual. Yeah.
Oh wow, thank you so much for sharing with us. I just wanted to, further understand what do you mean by, leaders, you're attracted to leaders who practice sense and sensibility. Like how do you actually, feel that or see that, other than what you've mentioned, of course, on charisma as like an important factor for leaders to be comfortable
Sense.
with other people, right?
Yeah, the sense and sensibility is about um being sensitive, like when you want to engage in an authority that you want to correct your subordinate or your people, but you don't do it right in front of everybody. Like, this person is making a big mistake right in front of making a fool of themselves, but you do not kind of like tell them on in front of the public that you make such a mistake. You would just tell them that, okay, I would love to meet you after this meeting to discuss something, where we could come to a consensus or understanding. Um, that's the kind of sensitivity and being sensible about. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of time when I guess that in leadership or being a leader, it's not easy to be in front where you want to correct it on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
It's a policy like correcting on the spot, but sometimes it can actually affect the humility and the dignity of your subordinate or your people, and that would affect in terms of not being able to be compassionate enough for them at that point of time. Like, everybody knows it's already a blunder, but
Mm-hmm.
if you said it further, it's a double blunder. Yeah.
I see. Thank you so much for, sharing with us more information on what you mean by that. And so, having said that, what is leadership for you?
Okay, leadership for me is more on I would love leadership as a practical. It is a practical kind of way where um it's a two-way relationship,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes depend on a situation, it have to be a one way. So it's really depending on uh, who are the people that you're working with, like knowing their character or knowing their style or
Mm-hmm.
knowing their personality, that
Mm-hmm.
actually would help on what kind of leadership style you want to practice on the people. It's like, for me, I wouldn't want to have a one style fit all for all
Mm-hmm.
my stuff, because knowing that individual or humans are really more on a customized basis, right? So a lot of them love to be addressed in their own comfort ground or at their own level, where they could receive what we want to tell them in terms of sharing of instruction, and
Mm-hmm.
at the same time being decisive. Yeah, being decisive is another, because sometimes if we are not decisive, or we don't know how to prioritize in being a leader, then
Mm-hmm.
that would actually prevent us from being able to lead, because the leading is about making the decision after everybody
Mm-hmm.
has kind of contribute to a lot of ideas and suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
Then the leader have to be the deciding one for everyone to be the
Mm-hmm.
spokesman for them.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Thank you for sharing that. And again, I love what you said that, it's a two-way relationship, and again, like, it's always like understanding whom you're working with as well, right? And I love what you've said about, customizing as well, like, how you communicate and how you deal with the people that you work with, because it's important, not and yet, you've mentioned being decisive despite of, being able to adapt on the different personalities that you work with. And that's where also what you've mentioned about charisma is important, right? Because it's all about having that, mainly, I would say, respect within other people and how unique they are, right? And again, we've been hearing a lot about the next normal, and how difficult it is to, to lead in this virtual or remote situation, in this next normal that we're having. So where, it's there's a different challenge that came to it in terms of how you can actually relate and engage with your team. Having said this, how would you actually define or describe next normal?
The next normal way of, I think the way things are is like, because let's say if you're looking at like accountancy, for
Mhm,
example, where
mhm,
your accountants are working from home, and you have to do oversee auditing, but it's no longer like you could sit in physical form. It's all
mhm,
about paperwork being uploaded and all
mhm,
that. So it really, this round, in terms of the new normal, it is stringent up on the accuracy of really uploading every
mhm,
single thing. You can't miss a bit, because in terms of paperwork, every single detail need to be really sent. So it's not like when you see and you can close it. There's no
mhm,
such way, because if
mhm,
there's no balancing, at the end of the day, the whole accountancy work or auditing will just be failed. It'll be a failed kind of thing, right? So
mhm,
that's one example of perspective. But I really look at the new normal, where people really have to learn to be really independent and
mhm,
trustworthy for themselves when they're doing work. Means their work ethics really got to be high up there. It means they got to step up, in terms of really clocking in from 9 to 5. They really have to clock in 9 to 5, because there's no way the bosses could see them doing work, like looking overview from another room, from another camera. There's no such thing
mhm,
as a home camera, right,
mhm,
to report to. So it's not really that easy having this. But that's why I mentioned about being able to get all the structure and the system
mhm,
in place,
mhm,
where the people will know the structures are all there for them to upload. So if anyone who have forgotten or who have not submitted, they would have known who have not done so. So the new normal is really about up the systemization. I see that as that.
mhm. Thank you for sharing that. And I would say that, like, not only the system structures, we've been hearing a lot about as well automations, AI, and all those technology leveraging. It's about leveraging technology from, how I understood it from you on the technical side, and from the soft side, I would say, like, you've mentioned about accuracy, integrity, and being able to, like, perform with or without people watching you, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And so that leads me to the next question. I mean, you were in the corporate world doing financial planning in the past, and now you've been working as well with leaders and individuals or entrepreneurs, to provide them with healing and all those stuff. And so from your experience, I mean, handling all this, what would you say would be the top problems of the that leaders do face, especially in the current situation, I would say.
For my nature of work now that I'm into holistic healing and empowerment,
Mm-hmm.
it's really more on the coordinative efforts by leaders who we kind of have to do frequent more zooming to
Mm-hmm.
actually discuss on what is the next action, what is the next activity, when is
Mm-hmm.
the next training, and a lot of my work is a lot of hands on. So I'm actually now working on doing more video to really do real video to help show what is really the therapy kind of work, and it's really different from when you have a face to face where you could really show and you could really assess them doing right in front of you and you can correct them way immediately. But in this case, in terms of certain techniques, when you show it to them, you will have to wait for a feedback for them to give back the video that they did the same technique that you taught them, and then you
Mm-hmm.
have to wait for that, and then eventually you have to assess whether are they doing it correctly or not. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really not as simple as it's a face to face. This is one of the challenges because
True.
for me, I work with adults, so it's adults are really more enthusiastic about knowing whether they want whether they make a mistake or not, whether they want to correct themselves. But when if you're working with kids, they will not even know that they are conscientious about really doing it right. They're just saying, I've done it. I do it for the sake of doing it. I don't do it for the sake of doing it properly or correcting yourself if you made any mistake, because they don't want even to look at whether do they make a mistake or not at the end of the day. So these are the kind of challenges, but we still have to adapt because at the end of the day, I have to be the one that know what is what is my content. I have to be very clear with my content and what I'm actually training and empowering. That clarity have to come from me, and so that I could deliver the right technique or information, and I would know exactly what kind of like the way they do it. I would have known that they are on the way on the right track,
Mm-hmm.
at least to that. Yeah, not really so perfect, but at least the way they do it, they're on the way to. If they practice more, they would have got it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, is there any more, like, problems that you'd like to share other than coordinative challenges, or have you actually covered everything you'd like to share?
Some of the problem that we encounter normally is more on the meeting of the expectation of the superior and normally with the people, or lack of human empathy on that
Mm-hmm.
sense, that
Mm-hmm.
I see would be a challenge doing work in this current new normal kind of thingy. Because sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
let's say if during this situation where you have a fever, and current fever would not be like 1 day fever to get themselves like well. So sometimes some people would have 3 days fever kind of thingy. So this kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing would like allow make the work task like stand down kind of thingy, you see. So
Mm-hmm.
this is one of the challenges, like if the leaders are not having enough empathy for
Mm-hmm.
them, for the staff that's facing such a situation, then
Mm-hmm.
eventually the expectation that this staff is just not doing the work and just plain lazy or giving excuses, it would not be what what is really happening. So the lack
Mm-hmm.
is the empathy that or compassion that actually that we could look at in terms of this situation that we face when we are handling this kind of new normal way of leadership. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for sharing that with us. And again, like, um, we've always like shared and been hearing a lot from not only these interviews, but the conversations that we're having, like on a on a private basis as well with other leaders, this always, comes up as well, the, the challenge that you were saying on the coordinative challenge, wherein, um, sometimes the communications get in the way because, people have different perspectives as well. And as well as, the in terms of empathy, that's the reason as well that, more and more people or organization and leaders are actually looking into how can we actually increase this, humility, and this empathy, as well as the emotional intelligence, so that we can stay empathetic or human, in this situation, despite of, we are working on, certain productivity, certain performance that we expect from our team, right? And of course, you've mentioned, or you've actually shared with me in a conversation about the bias as well in the gender and demographic, and I guess that's also the reason why, more and more organizations are looking into diversity and inclusions to, give more importance on this topic as well, right? So I really appreciate that. And before I proceed to the next question, I just want to say hi to Abinadan. Hi, Abby here from Singapore. Leadership is a key element during these times of ongoing transformation. And we totally agree with you on that, Abby. Yeah, because I mean, leaders drive a lot of, changes and transformations within the organization. And it's key that, the leaders in your organization, or as even as an individual, would start to look into that, like what Aisha is working on, more of the holistic side of, transformation as well. And Aisha, you've shared the top problems in for most leaders, especially those that, you've been serving as well. And I'm just curious to know, like, how can we actually address those problems in such a way, like, understanding more on this next question. Having said all those problems, right? So, what will be the important leadership capabilities, skills that, you must have in the next normal to be able to continue to lead effectively?
Okay, in order for us to step up with that situation that we are
Mm-hmm.
encountering, I
Mm-hmm.
I still believe that in terms of showing good leadership is really
Mm-hmm.
you have to have no bias, practice of no bias, or don't create a certain perspective or certain standard perspective to things. Because if we do believe that SOPs are important, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but it's to step up on how to encourage our people or staff or subordinate to have more
Mm-hmm.
commitment,
Mm-hmm.
uh, more commitment with the company or with us, at the same time empathizing, acknowledging their commitment in giving them the understanding through communication, and understanding their culture barriers, and being a little bit flexible to a certain extent, but not that there's no boundaries to flexibility, because every flexibility we have to create, it is to create more option, so that they would understand that we do note the challenge that they have on their end, but at the same time, the sense of credibility and trustworthiness of performing the task, appropriate task accordingly. That's actually one of those that is challenging. If you know that you have employed a staff that is normally will always report to you no matter what, and that will be really making it easier, like having a more proactive communication with your people. To me, that is something that could improve the whole leadership, and it will not be very autonomy kind of relationship, where the staff will be scared enough to report something which is not looking so positive. But if it's really you're open about it, they would really share the kind of thing that they could like follow what is required, but
Mhm.
in their own way, at their own perspective and challenge, where they are still putting in effort. The fact is sometimes it's
Mhm.
still the effort that counts, and not the performance or the right exact thing that we wanted or we expected out of them. Yeah,
Mhm.
that is the one that I believe it should be on that flexi zone for them. Yeah.
Mhm. Thank you for sharing with that. And with what happened during COVID-19, I mean, I would definitely agree with you on having that flexibility in terms of how they can actually monitor um, those barriers like what you've mentioned, and how they can actually continuously communicate, and not only communicate but also um, in terms of creating or giving valuable feedback, right?
Yeah.
In terms of now that people are actually working online, and you made mention as well, having the right tools that you can make use to facilitate this feedback, inquiries, and engagement within the organizations as well, right?
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing that. And we've been talking about leadership, learning, and some of the skills that leaders must have. And you also made mention that there has to be a commitment in upgrading themselves, or in terms of how they communicate as well, right? So what do you believe will be the role of learning, leadership, as well as transformation in order to thrive in this next normal?
um my belief on this is, as leaders, as we've mentioned, that
Mhm.
we shouldn't be stagnant on our experience and expertise and our knowledge. As
Mhm.
leaders, we can also learn to upgrade ourselves by listening to many aspects and many perspective that other leaders could actually give. It's not just like our perspective is the best perspective ever. It's no longer
Mhm.
in that mode where
Mhm.
we could learn from other leaders amazingly, because sometimes their way or their style or their method could, one of two, could be really approachable to our organization, that it could be
Mhm.
practical for us to also apply it, and it
Mhm.
wouldn't be like we are plagiarizing everything about them. It's not that. It's just that sometimes we do see that some of the problems that we encounter which has that similarity, and it really also apply the solutions that they use in that sense. So I really believe in co-sharing of intellect or intelligence, in terms of sharing the solution, or really being generous to have head to head kind of like panel discussion. That would be really an open way of sharing our leadership knowledge and empowerment too, that we
Mhm.
deserve that. Yeah.
Yes, I really appreciate you, sharing that. Um, and I remembered, like, several discussions as well. Not only in my interviews, like live interviews, but also in my research before the summit that we've organized, right? And we've talked a lot about how continuous learning is important, and like what you've said, you can't be stagnant on learning, and the only way to be able to be relatable, relevant, and adaptable in this new normal is for us to equip ourselves, right? Because there's so many changes going on that we have to keep up to that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's move on to the we've talked a lot about leadership, transformation, learning, and all those stuff, and how important all those are in order to continue to thrive in this normal or next normals. So like I would like to ask you like a few Miss Universe questions here. um with with what we've been um experiencing right recently, I think this would hopefully, increase hope and light up the mood in terms of this discussion, right? So I would like to ask from you, like, if you have a magic wand that you can use, what will you do? And if you'd like to share with us why, feel free to do so.
Okay, if I have a magic wand, I prefer leadership communication to be having no boundaries globally, because I
Mhm.
really believe in unifying. It's like global unification,
Mhm.
or even global unification leadership, because I still believe that we can learn from one another's strength,
Mhm.
and be constructive about each other's
Mhm.
weaknesses,
Mhm.
and also to, so that every individual will, who understand that when they are taking up a job or a role, they would have to know that there's always these five things in place. Like, they must have a sense of reliability, they must
Mhm.
have a sense of performing and understanding their task role or job scope really well, and they really have to look at their commitment value there, and to stay holistic in implementation and solution. I think that's a little bit challenging, because sometimes
Okay.
a lot of people don't look at the real well-being, like, what is your heart saying? My heart is saying this, my mind is not agreeing to the instructions. Should I execute it or not, and if you are really more open to holistic and understanding and having compassion and empathy, you would actually be able to permit such thing only on exceptional grounds, like
Mhm.
not all the time, but sometimes it can still be allowed, but with great responsibility and understanding, to note that this is
Mhm.
being mindful about it, kind of thing. And so that, for me, any kind of person who wants to work with us would be enjoying working for us, um, with enough passion and with enough effort, and there will be less complacency there. It will be enthusiasm in work performance. That would be
Mhm.
something interesting to look at. Yeah, it's not just work for the money. That's how
True,
that's
true.
how I see it. Yeah.
And I love what you've shared, it's all about communication. And I would say that, communication is always the issues that a lot of people, or even, especially leaders, are facing right now on how they can actually like communicate better. And, taking away these boundaries or barriers that we have, and basically knowing like I would say it's interesting that you've shared that that everyone is reliable enough to know what their roles and responsibilities, because sometimes it's interesting that some people are holding into a certain position or role, and they don't even understand what they are, what why they are in that position, right? So it's great that you've actually shared that, and most importantly the part where you've made mention about that holistic creating holistic implementation and solutions. And I would say like this is always like the top one of the top problems as well of most organizations or leaders per se, right? Like, I mean, being able to create that holistic implementation. I was just listening to a podcast earlier on stress elimination by Faye. It was an interview with Caitlin. And then it's interesting to know, like, because you've mentioned about creating holistic implementation and solutions. And I think this is where, like, the gap is commonly, I would say, not addressed. um, because, sometimes they would think, like, okay, so this is my face at work, this is my, how I am at home, and all those stuff. But, we have one brain, we have one body, we have one soul, and we can, it's so difficult to be like portraying different personas in different places, there has to be some sort of grounding, I would say, or like integration between work and life balance, right? And I guess
Yeah.
that's the reason why, the complications and problems do arise, because of not being really able um to express yourself as you are, and at the same time to have that, what you've mentioned, holistic implementation or solutions. I mean, we can't really have like everything strengths, right? And that's the reason why we work with other people to leverage on other strengths when we are weak on something else. Right?
Yeah.
Yes. And before I proceed to the next question, I've actually had, I think, a question here from Abby. Let us read that through. If there are three things that are missing today in the frontline leaders, what are those? Trying to understand which aspects of leaders are missing as per your experience, and trying to list out how to solve this. That's very interesting question. Um, would you like to take your comment on this, Aisha?
Um, it's really interesting how he shared about that. But you know what crossed my mind?
Mm-hmm.
What crossed my mind is, if let's say leaders are able to learn the technique that I learned holistically in understanding who I employ as my staff, or who are the people that I am engaged in, that I'm engaging them or engaging with. Because for
Mm-hmm.
me, if I'm able to understand and analyze and diagnose my people that I'm actually kind of like employing them, then
Mm-hmm.
I would have to know my people really really well. It's like to know them really really well, we really have to come down to get to know them deeper, and understanding their real values and how they really can perform. Because sometimes a lot of time staff can be like behaving like a facade kind of thing, because it's really that they are not really behaving like themselves, but they actually have the potential to perform. But a lot of time is their performance that's not being tapped on, because it's not being taken out because of the lack of understanding, or maybe they felt that they shouldn't have been giving their best or fullest self to allow the organization to benefit what they are really are, or what they want to give out really on the true potential. So those are the things that I wanted to add. But on, I don't know whether I do answer every evidence it's question on understanding the aspects of leadership in which is missing. But I still believe that if we are really able to understand our staff very well, even though they are a staff. But
Mm-hmm.
to me, the first call is to know them who they are first. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you don't know them, then you would not have gotten the heart value, heart centered of them, the commitment, the kind of like giving your best. You
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have caught that in the first place. Because we are back to humanitarian, we are still human. We still want to do it with our a sincere way of doing things. We don't want to like just do it for the sake of doing it, right? So
Mhm,
a leader should know how to try to look at that human aspects of understanding, if they want to look at it. If that could be quite missing,
mhm, mhm.
especially in the leadership of a company that is just based on a expectation and performance.
True.
That would be something missing there. Yeah.
Yes, and if I may add to your comment, right? If I were, I mean, in my own opinion, if I were to, choose three things, the first one is all about the mindset. I mean, leadership mindset, right? That's where everything starts. Their self awareness, and like how they act, how they think, and how they, communicate with others. I think that's always the main, thing that are missing out in today's leaders, whether they're at the front or at the back of the house or something, right? And the second thing, if I'm I were to choose, I would say it's more a lot about communications. 6 out of 10 leadership skills that are, of challenge to most are actually, is more about communications. And of course, as a frontline leader, you have to be facing like, um, your guests, your customers, and all those, right? And you're the one who's expressing your message, to the, not only to your team but also to your guests, for example, or to the patients or clients. If And lastly, I would say it's a lot to do with, really being able to, um, executing or implementing the strategies that you have. Because I think, even the conversations I have with, most clients, a lot of the challenges that they are facing is really how they can increase accountability or application of whatever they're learning. So I would say that's my, comment to that question. Thank you, Abby, for engaging with us and for that amazing question, I would say. So that, leads me to the last question I have for you, Aisha. If you were to ask yourself a question that you can best answer, what would it be? I mean, you've shared with us what you've been doing in a holistic way in wellness, and at the same time customizing a lot of your programs or services solutions to others. And it was interesting. I mean, I had my own experience understanding that numerology, and up until now I can't comprehend how did it you know how to do that and all those stuff, but it's very interesting. I mean, it's really a valuable, I would say, what should it's a valuable talent that anyone could have, and I'm sure it's learnable. It's a learnable. You can learn that specific skills, I would say, right? But when you brought me through that, numerology, process, or like, describing me and all those stuff, I would say that really it's really like of high value, if from the start, before you recruit people or especially leaders within your organization, to know like,
Yeah.
how will this person actually add value in this organization, like what additional strength do we need to complete the team and all those stuff. It's very interesting. So anyway, um if so my question, or my final question to you now, I mean, based on that experience and what you do, if you were to ask yourself a question that you can best answer, what would it be?
Okay. That question, that if you're best, okay, I would love to ask a question where, if every single individual that we know out there that always have a weaknesses, like we look at their strength in terms of looking at numerology, even they have a positive coded number and they
Mm-hmm.
have a weakness coded number. But
Mm-hmm.
a lot of time, a lot of us would look into the negative coded number, and find fault with the coded number, and they will have to disregard it. But it's already in them, it's already in their lifeline, it's already part of them. How do you constructively work on that particular weaknesses of yours, which is really yours? And I still see that if there is a holistic approach, um, way of a leadership, we could just work on people's weaknesses and convert or translate it, or even transform it into something which is a strength, because it's just a matter of putting a person to see that weakness as a strong thing for them to work on, that could
Mm-hmm.
actually outperform if we look at it in a positive perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Or else everybody would always feel bad about their negative thing, and they will always feel like, if this person know my weakness, I'm done. You know what I mean? So it's really about because or else people will be wanting to hide all their weaknesses. But at the end
Mm-hmm.
of the day, we want to be constructive and know that our weaknesses is something that we can learn to be constructive, and we can
Mm-hmm.
transform it into a strength actually. So that is something
Exactly.
that if I were to be given those situation, to approach, and especially it could help in terms of benefiting any organization in terms of their growth and expansion, rather than they encounter quite a lot of people quitting because they were unhappy with the way they are being treated, with the way they are being scolded, with the way they are being the way they are being approached. So
Mm-hmm.
we could actually handle it in a more holistic, positive, holistic manner. Then
Mm-hmm.
people will not feel that they are being biased, or they're being judged, or they're being put down. And then that would actually allow more loyalty and longer staying power for the people who wants to work, because sometimes you love the job, but you just have a leader that's just too strong for you, and you
Mm-hmm.
couldn't take it, and then you had to say that I need to leave. That is my last take for today.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. And I guess, they've been always saying that a lot of times, like, how important or crucial the role of leader in, employee retention. And at the same time, like, sometimes you leave the company really not because of work, but more of the people that you work with, especially the leaders that you work with, right? And it's good to know that, like what you've said, we can always turn, those weaknesses into opportunities, in fact, right? In a constructive way, like what you mentioned. So thank you so much, and I hope we can inspire, our audience to, keep that in mind, that, it's not just about, the weakness or strength, but also, like, putting it together and how you can actually work on that, right? And although that was the last question, I've actually seen this question from Alvin here. And maybe you'd like to take your, share your take on this. What do leaders need to continue motivating their people, especially in these trying times?
Okay.
Very interesting
um
question.
it's a very interesting question. Yeah. uh I see that we could actually empathize on just going back to basic, on making sure that even if we have to cut costs, but we still have to make sure that we still cover our people's kind of like support for food and drinks and shelter for their family. At least those are the most basic things to look at in not retrenching them or giving them a zero pay. Like, to them, still keeping the job, earning lesser is still better than getting retrenched and not bringing home anything for the next 6 months. And what would they eat after that if they were not given any opportunity of another job? And you wouldn't know there wouldn't be another job, especially at this trying time when everybody is not re-employing new staff. So it's really good to be more compassionate, even if there's a reduction. At least it will still allow the people that work with you to still support their family, because they can minimize their expenses. In terms of luxury, everybody could minimize, everybody are now living in minimization. But it's really good for them to still be able to keep their job, and they would appreciate if they still have it, no matter what. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that thought, Aisha. I hope, Alvin, that, answers your questions. And for me, if I may add to that, for you to be able to continue to motivate your people, I guess it's just a matter of, inspiring them as well to be grateful, because, a lot of people have died or passed away, due to COVID-19, got sick and all those stuff. Just be able to breathe today, um, is already a blessing, right?
Yeah, I still love the fact that if let's say we have a nice kind gesture of at least giving something to lighten up their stuff every day
Mm-hmm.
holistically. I mean, if you have a nice breathing environment, like
Mm-hmm.
you have aromatherapy in there in place, knowing that the current situation we have airborne kind of like pandemic, we it's good to really look at having some holistic giving away like some kind of aroma, so that
Mm-hmm.
everybody could actually breathe in good, or maybe can have an antiviral or antibacterial way of solutions. It's just to take off everybody's well-being, because we wouldn't know whether it's going to be like helpful for them. But for me, I could just share that at least for me, if there's no other specimens that anyone could choose, at least look into choosing having eucalyptus at least for
Right.
yourself at this pandemic time, because it does help with respiratory and immune system. And that could be something that I could share for this group of people who's listening today. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that tip. And also another thing that, aside from gratefulness is maybe, being able to engage, to keep engaging your team or investing in your team despite the situation, with some inspirational, motivational talk or even training that, will keep that momentum, will keep that energy on the high side, right? And I think that will be, I believe that, all those will be helpful to continue to motivate. And another thing I can think of as well is, to continue to communicate as well with your team, keep them updated, because if there's transparency and they know what's happening, they will understand, they will know like what to expect, and how they can actually help and contribute as well in the organization. Having said that, I hope we've answered your question, Alvin. And I really appreciate those who've actually engaged with us live. And thank you so much, Aisha, for sharing with us your insights, your experience, and some tips as well on how we can, go about this. So thank you so much, everyone,
You're
for
welcome.
joining us, and especially to you, Aisha, for this very insightful and interesting conversation with you on leadership and transformation. So, do this? Do you have any other additional message before we end this interview? Okay, seems like we've lost Aisha. But anyway, we really appreciate everyone who's watching us. And again, join us in this journey to really fight the pandemic that have caused challenges. And let's all help each other to turn this into opportunity. I'm sure everyone would agree that, this has really gave us a lot of opportunity to reflect and to look into the ways that, we do things and do things better at the same time, right? So just a reminder, or remember that even the richest investors in the world say that, investing in yourself is the best investment that you can ever make in your life. And also, okay, I just saw a few more comments here. What do leaders need to okay, context. Okay. Oh, okay. So you have a context of your question is, a leader also needs to support, similar to a confirmatory reply from his people, as he knows that his input are taken. Yes, thank you for sharing the context, and we hope and anyway, you've actually confirmed that we've answered your questions, and I am glad that you shared that with us, and Aisha is back. But anyway, the session has ended. Thank you so much, everyone, for engaging with us, especially Alvin, Abby, um, and Supadi, who actually engaged with us and sent their comment on this live session. Thank you so much. And we, of course, look forward to seeing you again in our next interview. And with that, we would like to leave you with this quote from Dolly Parton, that if your actions create a legacy that inspires others to dream more, learn more, and do more, and become more, then you are an excellent leader. Thank you so much again, Aisha, and thank you everyone for
Thank you
joining
so
us.
much, Marilyn.
Have a
Yeah.
nice day. Bye. Bye.
Bye.